But I can't trust these bitches, I know they gon' pick and choose. No, I can't trust these bitches, I know they gon' pick and choose. I fell in love with these streets, I seen 100,000. Loving fucking bad bitches, I was running wild. I just pray Bobby forgive me and see my son a while. I'm gonna pick him up from school to see him fucking smile. Somebody save me, save me. Tryna please a bitch and almost drove me crazy. I was breaking.
Okay, so we have. Oftentimes the first thing that happens after a disaster is people go through and clean out their closets, or they donate all the clothes that they've been holding on to for the time that they were going to donate. So we've been sorting clothes. There's some toys that were potentially useful. They just need to be really well cleaned before they can be handed out. We've been doing mold remediation. That's what the sprayer is for. And then over here, canned food, cleaning supplies, crackers, dog food. There's toilet paper, baby wipes, more dog food, dogs. These are MREs, civilian shelf-stable MREs. And then we have water, bleach, miscellaneous dried food, more dog food, adult diapers, and then some utensils. There's a neighborhood woman who comes by every night to cook, and she makes hot meals, and people just come and stand in the yard and eat. So that's what I am doing today, is organizing all of the supplies. That is all hospital-grade medical supplies. That is getting boxed up and sent to the Syrian American Medical Society, and they will send it wherever they need to around the world. So a bunch of these boxes are full of clothes. There's hampers all in there full of clothes. All of those boxes are full of clothes. So we need to find homes for all the clothes. What we may end up doing is just having a garage sale, and whatever money, either be able to put it back into supplies for the Medic Collective or right into the communities. For whatever supplies they might need. They've had some difficulty with organizations come in and they set up distribution centers, but they only operate, say, from 11 to 4 on Saturday. And people have to stand in a long line, they get a number, they go into the space where they then have to wait longer to get into the distribution center, and then they pick up whatever items it is that they can take and leave with it. But it's very controlled. Here, people just say, hey, we need such and such, and they come in and then they look, and if we have it, they can take it. If we don't have it, we say, let's see how we can get it. Let's see where we're going to make it come from. We're big fans of manifesting. So if you say that you need or want something, if you say it loud enough and in the right places, it shows up. And that's how most of this got here, is just by saying, we need a distribution center. That's terrible.
I mean, they were like sitting there for a good hour and a half.
The box is better than that.
But those are carrots.
The box is better than that.
Here, I'll get that. All right, so these are the civilian MREs, which have chili mac, Vienna sausages, pudding, cookies and chips and a Rice Krispie treat, 3 fruit cups, a handy wipe, Pop-Tarts, raisins, those are good for iron and blood sugar, cinnamon graham crackers, soda, cereal, and milk. And that is from Serve the People, and this is from the Red Cross. One of the things that we've started to do now that we have a little more downtime is food sharing. So last night a couple of people came over and we cooked 3 pots of chicken soup, and we took soup and blankets and heat packs, cardboard. Cardboard makes a nice barrier between the concrete and the people or their blankets. Concrete, the pavement is not your friend in the heat or the cold. In the summer, it'll burn you. In the winter, it zaps all your body heat. The city passed an ordinance that says it's illegal to share food with 5 or more people in public without prior written permission of the property owner. It was driven by the downtown business interests because they were upset about the trash. And what it did was effectively scare off churches and other organizations that had been sharing food. You know, we went down this morning to an empty lot and had 3 people come up to us and warn us that the police were going to come, that we were going to get arrested, and that what we were doing was illegal. The police don't come. I don't know. I don't want to be the cop that tickets the person who was with their church group handing out food, and then the city gets sued because there's the potential there for a lawsuit. But to my knowledge, not a single person has been ticketed under this ordinance, and I'd be really surprised if anybody ever was. I was volunteering at Food Not Bombs at the time, and I'd been doing home health, and I was familiar with going from place to place and situation to situation, but I wanted to be able to provide better care for the homeless folks that were coming out to eat. And then the night that the fella showed up and said, "Hey, can I talk to you a minute?" And we stepped behind my car, and he pulled up his shirt and he said, "I got shot. Can you help me with that?"
Oh, God. I'm bleeding out a little bit.
He hadn't been shot there. He'd gone to the hospital, and he made the mistake of, and it was an innocent mistake, he couldn't walk much further from the train that he'd taken from the campsite. Somebody had tried to steal his bag. He fought for the bag. The guy shot him and winged him. It wasn't a deep wound, but he'd still been shot.
Yeah.
He'd gone to a not-for-profit hospital, not a charity hospital. So he sat on a stretcher in the hallway for about 10 hours before anybody bothered to come and see him. They gave him a prescription for narcotic pain medicine, and a nurse taped dry gauze over the wound and told him to leave. And they dumped him out at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So no antibiotics, no follow-up for the wound care, no instructions, and a prescription he can't fill because he doesn't have an ID, and wouldn't fill because he didn't particularly need it, and he had a history of substance abuse and was trying his very best not to go back that way. So I did what I could for it for a couple of days, and it became clear that it was infected, and I ended up taking him to the county hospital and staying with him in the ER. There's a thing called accompaniment, where you accompany people who need care. I like to put the Band-Aids on the wounds that later fall off, or, you know, just be basically, I'm a nurse at heart. So doing the work that I was taught to do and is part of who I am gives me...
Speaking of which, should this swelling up that bad?
No, it should not. Did you bang it? What did you do?
Just that cut.
Did you cut it back open again?
I don't think so.
That doesn't look good. I don't think there's a sink in the bathroom anymore. There's a shower. Let's wash that with soap and water. Sorry.
Yeah, I did that a minute ago, and there's white pus.
There was. Okay, so it's got an abscess, so you need to go ahead and rinse that off. That needs to be looked at. It's probably got a staph infection.
Okay, that's okay. I can make it to the house, I think.
Well, it doesn't have to be looked at right this minute.
Right.
But in the
By the next 2 days.
24 to 48 hours, yeah. Especially if it swells more, or it becomes more painful, or it drains more.
Yeah.
Or if it gets hot.
An animal would like immediately do that to me?
That's an animal bite?
No, it's a scratch.
Who did that?
A cat.
Oh, honey, you need to get that looked at
Okay.
today. That could be cat scratch fever, and that's a bad infection. That's not just going to be staph. Yeah.
I didn't know cats gave fevers.
It's called cat scratch fever. It's an infection that spreads very quickly, and your hand can go from a little bit puffy to the whole thing is swollen and you're on IV antibiotics for a week.
All right.
All right, let's go find you an urgent care. All right, so that's a cat scratch, yeah. And we're not going to play with a cat scratch. Yeah, it is a tiny little thing, and sometimes a tiny little thing can end up being your entire hand.
I don't like that.
Okay. All right, my nosy personal mom thing. Do you have money for an urgent care? Okay, I do. Okay, let's go find you an urgent care. Yesterday was rough, but today is better, and that's how things are going to change. And it's that constant chipping away, just the little bits that you do every day. Eventually it all adds up, because you do your little bit without even knowing that somebody over here is doing a little bit, and a little bit very quickly becomes a lot. There's a Latin saying that my high school Latin teacher taught me. It translates to dripping hollows out rocks.
Yeah.
Same thing is true with systems and people. If you keep the right kind of pressure on for long enough, stuff changes.
the Red Cross.
Not the Red Cross. But, you know, how much longer can the Red Cross continue with people now seeing and having firsthand experience at this point with the stuff that they pulled after Katrina and during the wildfires and in Haiti and with the blood donations? The Red Cross has a terrible reputation. And they have a lot of very wealthy people still defending them, and they have folks like we talked about earlier who don't either want to or don't know how to think about where else to direct their money.
Hi, how can I help you guys?
My understanding is that in the George R. Brown Red Cross shelter, it was divided into dorms, and the police who enforced all the Red Cross rules were often heard to refer to the dorms as cell blocks. And the more folks who were on the higher end of the socioeconomic scale, the more of them that moved out of the shelter, the fewer services were available in the shelter for people who had been homeless before the storm. And it showed in the way that they were being treated. 3 days before the Red Cross closed the shelter at NRG, they pulled out the laundry facilities. And a couple of days after that, they pulled out the showers. And when that location closed, they opened a location off of Fannin on the south side of 610, more in a warehouse district. And it was a warehouse. It was a HCC warehouse that they cleaned out the day they moved people in. They put 800 people in a warehouse that's not meant to house people. We got to look inside, and it was just bed after, and not a bed, cot, just cot after cot after cot after cot, but there was no privacy. There were no flush toilets. They had porta-cans. There were no hand washing facilities inside the thing. There were no laundry facilities, and the showers were located outside. And everybody that we saw that we would talk to were developing productive coughs, upper respiratory infections. The curfew at George R. Brown was midnight, and so people the first couple of nights that the new shelter was open were showing up at 10:30 and 11:30, thinking they had plenty of time to get into the shelter, and finding out the curfew had been changed to 10 p.m. So the first night the new shelter was open, they locked out 20 people, including a 9-month-old and a 14-month-old. So we stood there and argued and filmed, and everyone was allowed in that night, except for one young man who had a beer in his hand. He was not intoxicated by any stretch of the imagination, but he was upset, and he was hurting, and he was telling people, look, I've been here, my dog is inside. My dog's been inside for 4 hours without me. They won't let me go inside because they say I'm late. I was 5 minutes late. They won't let me in. And a volunteer came out to talk to people. She got aggressive with some of us when she realized we were filming. And we were threatened with arrest if we didn't stop filming. So the Red Cross volunteer is talking to the police, who are then talking to the people, and she's telling them, look, if you all just calm down, and calm down, calm down. When you say calm down to agitated folks, it doesn't work, but they're all doing their best. And this young man is saying, look, this is what's going on, and I'm not happy about it. And one of our medics overheard her say to the cop, I don't want him inside. It's about 12:30, the lights are all off. The lights are off in the car. The Suburban pulls up, police Suburban pulls up, and about 8 cops walk this young man out to the Suburban, and they put him in the back seat. So we asked the cops, what's he being arrested for? And 4 of them put their arms up like this and shrug their shoulders and walk back inside without answering. And one of them finally turns around and says, he's not being arrested, he's going to the sobering center. If you're in the Red Cross shelter and you were escorted from the property by the police for any reason, they remove your armband, and you are no longer allowed back in the shelter. It was her way of getting rid of him. But that's the way the Red Cross and the volunteers, some of the volunteers behaved toward the folks that they were supposed to be here helping.